I wanted to do a quick video today talking about how to age gracefully. It's a question in a lot of people's mind. We're not getting younger, we're always getting a little bit older. If you're 20, before you know it, 30 is going to hit you. So what are some of the alternative things? Because we know the traditional things, weight training, stretching, eating right, getting plenty of sleep. We know those things. But what are some of the alternative things that you can do to help yourself age more gracefully when you hit your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond? One of the first things, it seems very trivial, but a midday nap. And probably people asking, well, why would, depending upon if your job allows it or not, but why a midday nap? We're supposed to get between 8 and 9 hours, well, I think it's 7 to 9 hours of sleep on the average. But the average American, just based upon the world we live in, all the technology, there's always some type of noise going on, probably gets between 4 to 6 hours of sleep. We can function there, but your body is not at its most optimal when it doesn't get its 7 to 9 hours of REM sleep. So what are one of the things you can do? Depending upon what your profession is, if you can, you get yourself a midday nap. Anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour if it allows. It's a great way. We always, especially people who drink a lot of coffee and take a lot of, those 5-hour energy drinks and things of that nature, you have that midday crash. One of the ways to avoid that midday crash is literally taking a nap wherever you can, as long as you're safe. A 20-minute to 1-hour nap will rejuvenate you for the rest of the day and into the evening for what other activities you might have going on, especially once everything starts to open up. So a midday nap is always helpful, especially if you're somebody who doesn't get enough sleep during the regular hours. Definitely a midday nap will be a great thing for you. Another thing that you can do in that time for the alternatives is vitamin supplementation. But more specifically, I'm going to speak about vitamin D and turmeric. Vitamin D is vital. Vitamin D is not a supplement, by the way. It's a precursor to, it's a hormone, so it's a precursor to a vitamin. So one of the reasons that it's so important that you have sufficient vitamin D is because it allows your body to absorb calcium. Another important factor as it pertains to bone density. Two of the most important, vitamin D and calcium. As we get older, our bones become more brittle, and so that can leave you open to osteopenia or osteoporosis, which is essentially mineral loss in the bone. We lose a little bit of bone density, but it gets replaced. But once we get past about the age of 30, is when it begins to slow down, and we don't have as much bone density, and so it's important that you're able to supplement that. For those people who live in the Northeast, I don't have the exact numbers, but if I had to venture a guess, 70 to 75% of people in the Northeast are vitamin D deficient. Why? Because we don't get enough sun. If you pretty much think about it, you pretty much think about Memorial Day to Labor Day is probably the most sun that we're going to get throughout the entire year in the Northeast. So it's very important that you have a supplement that will help you get that vitamin D so that you can absorb that calcium. That's going to be very important for long-term bone density health. So that's another very important one. And the other one I wanted to talk about was turmeric. Turmeric has antiviral. It's not a cure for anything, but it has antiviral properties. So some things like the common cold and things of that nature, if you're taking turmeric, can help you not avoid a cold, but make it less than it would be normally if you weren't taking it. Also, it's an anti-inflammatory, which is something that a lot of people deal with as they get older, especially if you're somebody who's active. You want to make sure it helps your joints. It helps to limit that inflammation. That's one of the reasons as people get older, they not only just not having enough muscle to move around, but their joints become very inflamed just from age. It just happens. It's just biology, the way it works. So definitely turmeric is another one. A good turmeric. No two vitamins are created equal, so definitely do your research before you buy them. Don't just buy anything. Make sure there's not a lot of fillers in there and things along those lines. So that's a second one. A third one, a sauna. Doesn't seem like much, but one of the things that you're doing when you're in a sauna is you're sweating, and in that sweat you're removing a lot of impurities, a lot of the sugars and things of that nature that you just consume in your everyday life. You'd be surprised how many items that you use which you wouldn't think have sugar in them actually do. So please check the labels. But a good thing like a sauna is something to sit in just to detoxify, just to get those impurities out of your body as much as you can. Another one is yoga, but more specifically hot yoga. And I was talking about saunas before. So essentially you're doing yoga in a sauna. So imagine you take a towel that's very wet and you twist it, and you get all that excess water out of there. That is what you're doing when you're doing hot yoga. you're getting all those impurities out of your body while stretching and getting the muscles elongated. So that's another one that's very good for you for your long-term health. You'll feel it's going to be, the first time you do it, if you've never done it before, it's going to be awful. But you get used to it, and all of a sudden you get better at the poses, and just as time goes on, you feel better doing it. So that's definitely one. A massage, I know people are thinking about, couples massage, things of that nature, but a good deep tissue massage does wonders for your muscles, especially if you're somebody who works in a sedentary environment. Definitely getting a nice massage in the low back, a full body massage definitely, but some kind of reflexology or something along those lines definitely helps. It gets some of those knots that you tend to develop, especially from doing the same repetitive movements all the time. So definitely a nice deep tissue massage. If you didn't think you would need a nap before, you're going to definitely take a nap after that, and make sure you drink plenty of water. Another great one, going to a good chiropractor. You know, people don't realize it, but as time goes on, we have our vertebrae, and we have like little gelatin. It almost looks like a little pieces of jello in there. Those lose moisture. So what happens is, you probably heard your parents or somebody say, I feel like I'm getting shorter. Well, they are, because all of a sudden, think of an accordion, now everything's starting to push in a little bit. So what you want to do is make sure you find yourself a good chiropractor who's going to help relieve some of the tension that's going on, because it's not just what those vertebrae do is it helps to protect the spinal cord. After a while, those things start to narrow. It's called spinal stenosis. So that canal starts to get smaller and smaller. So if you can find yourself a good chiropractor, they can explain it a lot more in detail to you. It's a great thing to have. 75 to 80% of Americans, I just know within the United States, but Americans have low back and mid back issues. So definitely finding yourself a good chiropractor is a great thing that you can do. And finally, the last thing you can do, it's become more popular recently, is cryotherapy. That is a really great thing to do. If you're an athlete, they have, those ice baths that you can go into. But if you're the average everyday person, you don't have the luxury of an ice bath or anything along those lines. So what you can do is go and get yourself some good cryotherapy. It's a couple of minutes. It's cold. It's minus 200 degrees. But you make sure you go to a reputable place. And if you can do it once a week after a long week of working and everything like that, it definitely will do wonders for you. Why? Because once again, we're talking about, what do we use ice for? What do we use cold for? We use cold to keep the swelling down. And so that will help in terms of your joints and everything along those lines. So definitely find yourself a good cryotherapy place, someplace that's reputable. Definitely, if you can go in there once every 2 weeks or something like that. Most of these things that I've given you today aren't going to be cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but they're definitely going to be effective. So if there's some way you can fit it into your budget, that would be great. It is good for just longevity. It is good for being functional into your 60s, 70s, 80s. You want to be as functional as possible. There's a lot of people, especially your grandmas and grandpas, who are wheelchair-stricken, and you don't want to be a part of that. So these are just a few of the things. There's acupuncture and other things modalities like that. I'm not as familiar. You can do your own research, but just a few things I wanted to talk to you about today that will help you age gracefully, and will help you live a long, productive, physical, healthy life. Take care of yourselves, all right?